got here is a U.S. Army boot, size 11 wide. If you'll notice, these boots have seen better days, that's for sure. I've been wearing them for 10 years off and on. But you can see right here in the side, I got a big hole where this seam has finally given away. I've got excessively wide feet, and my feet just kind of finally busted through the side here. It's right on the seam, so I'm going to go ahead and sew that up, and then I'm going to put a real healthy dose of tallow on these boots, kind of bring them back to life a little bit, maybe get another couple of years out of them. The sole is still in really good shape, so I should be able to get a couple more years out of them anyway. Now what I'm going to use for this, on the back of my knife sheath, which is right here, I carry a cloth sail needle, and it's already got thread on it. You can just see it, just right there is the tip of it. And since it's already got thread on it, all I have to do is fish out one of those threads from the duct tape, and then I can pull this whole thing out. And it's, I just got the thread wrapped around the needle there. So I got a tent repair kit several years ago for next to nothing. And it came with about 10 or 15 of these needles. And I've had that tent repair kit for 8 years, I guess. 7 years anyway. And I have been using these needles for that long, and I can't say enough good things about them. They're really just the cat's meow for doing this kind of repair work. The only issue I'm going to have is this needle is so big, and I've got to fit this inside my boot. But we'll see how it works. First thing I'm going to do is pull out this insole, which looks like it's just the regular insole that came with the boot. I have tried some other different insoles, and I've bought some Dr. Scholl's I'm going to put in there and see how those work, the big and tall version. I'm going to unlace this boot so I can get in there. That should work out nicely. I can fit my hand down in that boot real well. This is what I'm trying to avoid, that right there. So get it repaired before it gets any worse. Now what I'm going to do is I also wanted to show you guys what a backstitch was. I've seen most videos I see on YouTube when people are stitching, they're using a whip stitch, and there's nothing wrong with a whip stitch, it's just not nearly as strong as a backstitch. So because of the knot of this I want on the outside so it's not rubbing my foot, I'm going to start my stitch from the outside working in. And I'm just going to reuse the holes that are already here. In the boot already. And you always want to start a little bit farther out than you need to, than where the repair actually needs to be, so that you can strengthen that up. So I'm going to pull this all the way through. And I've got a large knot tied on the end of this. I'm going to make it even larger so it doesn't pull through all the way. Okay, this is the start of the back stitch. There's 3 holes here. I've got the thread going through the first hole, there's an empty hole, and I'm coming back through on the 3rd hole. I'm going to pull this all the way through. And then I'm going to go back through the 2nd hole. If you can see that. If you can see that, there is the knot in the first hole, there is the empty hole, and here is the thread that I just put through. So I'm actually coming back, which is why they call it a back stitch. Now I'll go forward 2 holes. And these holes have already been punched in the leather by the previous thread that used to be in here that I've since just wore off and it broke. So I went forward 2 holes, punch that through, and then I'll come back 1 hole. Now I'm going to end up double stitching this. And this is just my belt here that I'm going to use as a thimble to kind of punch these things through. It's going to end up nice and tight, which is nice. But I'm going to run down the boot on that second seam, and I'm going to come up one and run back up the boot on the third seam. And then I'll have a tag left over here, right here, to tie everything off with. Alright guys, so I got the boot back stitched down, crossed over, back stitched back up. I took the 2 tags and then tied them together, and now I'm just going to take my lighter here. This is a nylon thread, real heavy duty stuff that came in the tent repair kit. See if I can get this lighter to work. There we go. I'm just going to burn those off of there. To make this boot bigger, I shifted the seam over one seam. There's 4 seams or 4 sewn strips here. I moved it over 1 strip, which will make this boot a little bigger, and that's not going to hurt my foot's feelings any. So I did notice this boot is cracked right here. The leather is cracked because my foot is so wide. It hangs over, and it gets a lot of wear right there on that edge. So I may not get maybe but another year out of these boots, but just a quick repair like that. You can use your own belt as your thimble. On the inside of your boot, you can just squeeze it on the opposite side. You don't even need to stick your belt in there to do that, to punch it through. But now I'm just going to take this old boot and give her a good coat of tallow, and she'll be ready to go back on my feet. So give it a nice good coat. Now, kind of plug those holes up with a little bit of tallow. Your body heat isn't usually enough to liquefy this tallow, so if you have a hole in your boot, a small pinhole, and you plug it with tallow, it'll stay plugged. Your body heat isn't gonna melt that out of there. Just kind of recondition these guys here. The welt, which is where the leather meets your seam, or where the leather meets your sole rather, that welt is good to kind of pack with tallow if you can. That is usually where my boots will generally leak from that spot if I step into a puddle or whatever. I don't generally wear waterproof boots. I try to avoid water when I can. I don't think that, me personally, I would rather wear a very lightweight, non-waterproof boot. Put a good heavy coat of tallow on it to at least give it some water resistance. Now, I do want a boot to be water resistant enough to where when I walk through some heavy dew on some grass, my boot isn't getting soaking wet, or my feet rather. But I also don't expect a boot to be lightweight and be waterproof so that I can tromp through mud puddles all day. I do my best to avoid stepping in water, and I've never had issues with my feet from
So
water.
you can really
stuff. Compromise between water resistance and a lightweight boot. I haven't found a boot that's completely waterproof that my feet don't sweat to death in. I just like a normal leather boot with a wool sock, and I'm usually good to go. There we go. Okay, there's one boot complete with the repair. Now I'm going to go ahead and install this new insole here. I'm sure I'm going to have to cut it to size. My boots are size 11, but I'm going to start with the size 12 cutout on this sole, and if it's a little too tight I'll cut it again, but I'd rather have too much than not enough. I can always cut it smaller if I need to. So, and my feet are so wide that I need to make sure I get enough material to cover it. I'm just using my multi-tool here. I've got scissors on my multi-tool, and I'll just cut this around on the number 12 line here. Looks like there's only about 1/4 of an inch difference between the 11 and the 12. But these boots, because they are so old, I know that they've stretched quite a bit, because when I first got them in basic training, I ended up getting bunions on my feet, which is no fun. I don't recommend it for anybody. Alright, there's my finished insole. Get this in the boot, make sure it fits, and then I'll see what it feels like. It's got to feel better than those old ones I had in there. Yeah, the 12 is going to work. These boots have stretched so much over the years. That 12 is going to work just fine. Ooh, oh, what a world of difference that insole is going to make. Heck yeah. Alright, well, I'm going to do the other side just the same way. Alright, time for the left boot. I got it unlaced already. I'm going to take my leather belt that I'm wearing, I just unfastened it around my waist, and punch that needle through. I've got my large knot tied at the end there. And I'm going to back stitch this one all the way down and all the way back, just like I did the other. Okay, once again, there's the knot that I tied before I punched it through from the outside to the inside. Here's where I've come out the first one, and I'll punch it back through right in the middle. So you're going 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That's the best way I can explain it for a back stitch. But as far as I've been told, it is the strongest hand stitch out there. And you don't have to do every single one a back stitch. You can do a running stitch if you want. I don't know why you would. Save time, I guess. Save thread, maybe. And like every 3rd stitch can be a back stitch, and then it's referred to as a locking stitch. Just go ahead and cut that with the multi-tool since I got it out. I'm going to tie that knot. Just tie a square knot. Burn the end with a lighter. It's burnt. Alright, second boot is repaired. Now I got to put a coat of tallow on there, lace it back up, and I'll have 2 good boots. I'm going to put my second insole in now. Alright, there's my tallow.